Good morning, colleagues, and welcome to this webinar on introducing T-levels for leaders. My name is Paul White, and I'm the head of provider development at NCFE. One of the functions of my role is to lead the CPD and training for NCFE's T-level providers. I've worked for NCFE for approximately 3 years, and prior to that, I was an FE and HE lecturer for 15 years and also head of department. So would like to think I understand and I'm empathetic to the challenges you face working and leading in the FE sector. Over the course of the next 45 minutes or so, I want to introduce you to T-levels and in particular some of the key issues and questions you're likely to face as leaders within your respective organisations. COVID is obviously at the forefront of our minds, and it's impossible to say where we'll be in September 2021. We are aware that this presents challenges, but I do want to focus on the substantive elements of T-levels and what we do know. As this develops and emerges over the coming months, we will be communicating with you on key changes and developments. So first of all, just a few housekeeping items. If we have time towards the end, we're going to try and take some Q&As, and they will be through the chat box. The chat box is in the bottom right-hand side of your screen. The session is being recorded, and a link will be made available to you after the webinar. There are over 100 people on the webinar today, so it's unlikely we're going to be able to get through anywhere near the number of questions that are likely to be asked, but they will be rolled up and sent out in our T-level FAQs. Your settings are on mute just to avoid any background noise and feedback. And as part of the session, we'll be asking you to complete a brief CPD requirements survey, which will hopefully inform our delivery programme. There'll also be an evaluation form at the end, and we have got a poll for you to complete just to gauge your level of knowledge and understanding. So a brief overview of the session, what we're going to be looking at today. We're going to be looking at the origin and development of T-levels. Going to explain the development of the relationship between apprentices and T-levels, set out what a T-level looks like and how it's assessed, the role of employers, how T-levels are funded, progression opportunities and UCAS, additional support for T-levels, and then I'm going to finish on just a few words around the future of level 3 provision. So I'm now going to just launch a poll just to check what the level of understanding is amongst delegates. So I'm just going to launch that poll now, if everyone could be so good as to have a go at that. Just while you're doing that, colleagues, just to let you know, I have 2 of those earthlings called teenagers that live in the same house as me and tend to get up for breakfast at various parts of the day. So hopefully it should be a peaceful journey, a peaceful flight today. If you do hear anything going bang in the background, it's probably scrambled eggs being made for late breakfast, but I'm sure that we'll sail through that. So we've got about 80% of colleagues voted. We'll just give it a few more seconds. Okay, I'm going to close the poll now. So I'm just sharing the results of that poll with you, colleagues. 62% of people reasonably knowledgeable. We do have a few experts in the webinar today, which is really good. So hopefully we'll be able to move everyone on a little bit and be able to take something away from the webinar today. So what is a TLevel? Well, a TLevel is a level 3 two-year program aimed at 16 to 19-year-olds. They're equivalent in size, rigor and depth to 3 A-levels and attract UCAS points. They're vocationally focused on 11 occupational related routes, and all of them share some common characteristics which we're going to look at today. TLevels are owned by the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education, and from here on in we'll refer to them as IFATE. So where did it all start? The story of TLevel starts in 2016 with the Sainsbury Review. The independent panel on technical education, commonly referred to as the Sainsbury Review, was tasked with advising government ministers on actions to improve the quality of technical education in England. The panel recommended the development of 15 technical routes that would lead to skilled employment, which would cover both employment and classroom-based training. The panel also recommended that new flagship technical educational qualifications, i.e. TLevels, should be delivered in 11 routes through an exclusive license arrangement. The other 4 routes would be delivered as apprenticeships. The government accepted the recommendations of the panel and published the Post-16 Skills Plan in 2016, which committed to deliver the first TLevels to be available for first teaching in September 2020. In 2017, Parliament passed the Technical and Further Education Act 2017, creating the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education. In the same year, the DfE launched the TLevel consultation and the TLevel action plan. The TLevel action plan is one of the documents that we'll be referring to quite a bit during the webinar, and that has been put into the handout section, which you should be able to access in the panel. In 2018, the government response to the consultation set out their policy on the design of TLevel content, assessment and grading, and Ofqual consulted and signed off on the TQ regulations. An interesting and important note on the development of TLevels is the intimate alignment with the apprenticeship standards. The standards that have been developed by the Trailblazer groups and form the basis of the apprenticeship assessment plans have also been used by the TLevel panels to develop the TLevel outline content. The outline content has then informed the TQ qualification specifications, which, taken with the other requirements, including work placement, English and maths, form the overall TLevel programme. TLevel panels are responsible for developing the outline content for the new TLevels. The panels are made up of employers, professional bodies and providers, and help in creating technical education programs. There are TLevel panels across all 11 routes of TLevels. Membership of those panels can be found on the gov.uk website, and the link is at the foot of this particular slide. So 2 awarding organisations were successful in the procurement to deliver and award the technical qualifications for the first 3 TLevels for delivery from September 2020. Firstly, ourselves, NCFE, who were awarded a contract to deliver the Education and Childcare TLevel, and Pearson, who were awarded contracts to deliver TLevels in Design, Surveying and Planning, as well as Digital Production, Design and Development. These technical qualifications are now approved, and delivery commenced in September 2020. In terms of 2020 delivery, according to the government's TLevel Action Plan, 44 providers that started delivering 2-year TLevel programs in September 2020. 33 of whom are also delivering the TLevel transition program, which we'll discuss in a few moments' time. Early recruitment information received from the 44 education providers offering TLevels in the 2020 academic year shows that TLevel participants at the end of October were approximately 1,300, 1,300, and the proportion of those participants by TLevel route was approximately 400 for digital production design and development, 250 for design, surveying and planning for construction, and 650 for the education and childcare. IFATE published the invitation to tender for Wave 2 TLevels in March 2019 for delivery this September, and on the 2nd of October 2019 confirmed that NCFE and City and Guilds had been chosen to deliver 7 TLevels from 2021. Qualification approval and accreditation for the TLevels in on-site construction and building service engineering for construction, delivered by City and Guilds, was given in November 2020, as was approval for digital support services and digital business services, which has been delivered by us at NCFE. 3 TLevels in health, science and healthcare science have just been recently approved, and the specifications and materials are now on our website to allow providers to prepare for first teaching from September 2021. So now let's cover the TLevel qualification and look at the architecture of TLevels in general and what common themes define them. Generally, the overarching TLevel program consists of 5 key elements: the core, occupational specialisms, industry placement, English and maths requirements, and other requirements set by employer panels. The technical qualification, or the TQ, is the substantial element of the overall TLevel program. This TQ comprises of 2 parts: the core and the occupational specialisms. It's important to note at this point that the outline content has been produced by TLevel panels of employers, professional bodies and providers, and as already alluded to, is based on the same standards as those used for apprenticeships. So let's look at the core. The core content relates to the whole route and the pathway that the technical qualification covers. This breadth of context will help to ensure students are able to apply their skills in a variety of contexts and for a variety of different purposes. The content will vary depending on the requirements of the route and the pathway or the occupations covered by the scope of the qualification. The core knowledge and understanding focuses on the student's knowledge and understanding of contexts, concepts, theories and principles relevant to the T-level. The core can make up between 20 to 50% of the technical qualification in terms of delivery time. The second component of the TQ are the occupational specialisms. The occupational specialisms correspond to the apprenticeship standards listed on the occupational maps covered by the T-level. The occupational specialisms ensure students develop the knowledge, the skills necessary to achieve a level of competence needed to enter employment in the occupational specialism. Achievement of this minimum level of competence signals that a student is well placed to develop full occupational competence with further support and development once in work. The occupational specialisms can make up between 50 to 80% of the TQ in terms of delivery time. In addition to the TQ, students will also need to complete an industry placement. The T-level industry placement must take place with an employer. That employer must be external to the provider. That is to say, outside of the college or the institution that are delivering the T-level qualification. The purpose of the T-level industry placement is to develop the students' skills in the work environment and to give them the opportunity to apply those skills. The industry placement is set at a minimum requirement of 315 hours. There's also an exit requirement of English and Maths for the T-level programme, and this requirement is set at level 2. There is an exception to this for SEND learners, which is at entry level 3. The English and Maths requirement can be met with either GCSEs grade 4 or functional skills at level 2. Finally, the T-level programme may consist of other requirements depending on the particulars of the T-level pathways. So this could include something like a health and safety certificate or some sort of license to practice or a professional registration that's required for skilled employment in a specified sector, like education and childcare, for instance. In addition to the 5 key assessed elements of the T-level programme, there are also employability, enrichment and pastoral hours included in the T-level programme aimed towards the further development of students. Having looked at the 5 elements that make up the T-level programme, let's look specifically at the TQ approach to assessment and grading. The core is assessed by 2 external assessments that are set by NCFE. They are externally set and marked. The first part of the assessment is an external assessment, and this may take the form of an exam, for example. The second part of the assessment for the core is the Employer Set Project, or the ESP. The Employer Set Project is developed by NCFE in collaboration with sector employers to make sure that this is an occupationally relevant and realistic set of tasks that will help prepare the student for employment in their identified sector. One thing that's worth noting about the Employer Set project is that it is externally set and marked by NCFE, and it is set in collaboration with employers. These are a separate set of employers to those who will be involved in supervising the industry placement for individual students at a centre level. And I'll be saying more about that in the next few slides. So those two assessments, the core and the occupational specialisms, have a compensatory grading structure, and the final grade for the core will be set at A* to E. The occupational specialisms are synoptically assessed through assignments, which are also set by NCFE, and these will be graded at pass, merit, and distinction. The combination of the core grade and the occupational specialisms grade then gives rise to the overall TQ grade, which will be from a pass through to a distinction star. When students complete all of the mandatory T-level components and complete their T-level program, they will receive a T-level certificate, which will be issued by IFATE. The T-level certificate will outline all of the components they've achieved and the grade they've achieved on each part of the technical qualification. So in this example, you can see an other has achieved a B on the core and a merit on the occupational specialism, and has given rise to an overall merit grade, which you can see at the top of the certificate for the T-level. There is a lookup table which will be on the reverse of the certificate, which explains how the overall grade has been calculated, with an accompanying UCAS table highlighting the value of the T-level in terms of tariff points. Where students have not successfully completed all of the components of the T-level program, they will receive a T-level statement of achievement outlining what the student has achieved. For this example, whilst the student has completed the core component and achieved a grade B, they haven't achieved an occupational specialism, nor have they completed the industry placement. They have achieved some other additional requirements, namely a health and safety certificate, which must have been prescribed in the particular route or pathway. There's also a statement that the student met the exit requirements for English and maths. The key point in showing these two slides is that there's obviously an implication for entry requirements policies that you adopt in your centres, but also a recognition of the fact that students must complete all of those elements to be awarded the overall T-level certificate. The T-level qualification should provide excellent progression opportunities for learners, with options ranging from higher level apprenticeships through to skilled employment. And because the T-level qualification attracts UCAS points, it also provides pathways into higher education. In particular, we can see that a T-level distinction star grade is equivalent to 3 A-levels at A*, attracting 168 UCAS points, reflecting the size and rigour of the T-level qualification. Over the past few slides, made reference to employers in a number of different contexts, and employers are absolutely central to the success of the T-level. Employers are involved at 3 points, and the employers at each point are different and normally independent of each other. Think of it as the trinity of employer involvement. As discussed earlier, TLevel panels are made up of employers, professional bodies and providers. They're managed by IFATE and set out the requirements and the outline content for TLevel programs. The core component of the TLevel is partially assessed by an employer set project. That employer set project is developed by awarding bodies, and that is done in collaboration with industry employers who verify that the brief is realistic. The industry placement is with an industry relevant employer that is external to the provider, and they are normally unrelated to the other two sets of employers. In addition to the TLevel, our TLevel transition program has also been developed. Because the TLevel qualifications are 2-year qualifications to 3 A levels, it may be the case that some students aren't quite ready to take that extra step to a TLevel program. However, they might reasonably be able to begin the TLevel within 12 months after a 1-year transition program. The TLevel transition program is a tailored study program which is focused on preparing for a particular TLevel pathway. And to achieve that, the TLevel transition program needs to have 5 key components, which you can see highlighted in colour on your screens now. These components are nationally set, but there is flexibility at centre level about how to design and package this program to meet the needs of students and best prepare them for the particular pathway in question. So let's briefly look at the 5 mandatory components of the transition program. Firstly, the diagnostic period. This is where the individual needs of the students will need to be assessed so that they can decide which TLevel route or pathway they need to prepare for and in what particular areas they require support. There's an English and maths requirement for the TLevel transition for those who are not yet at the point where they have achieved GCSE grade 4 in English or maths, and to make sure that they are on track for meeting that exit requirement. There's work experience and work-related learning component to help get students ready for the industry placement. Currently, there is no prescribed time limit for the length of the work experience, only that there should be some element of work experience. There's also introductory technical skills, and this is where the student on the transition program can begin to get an introduction to the technical pathway of their choice. This is where, for example, a range of level 2 qualifications from across a range of providers could be considered for inclusion within the TLevel transition program. Finally, there's a pastoral support and personal development component to the transition program. This is intended to provide wider support and to develop study skills. It also addresses any other barriers that might be particular to the student so that they are in a good position to begin the TLevel program. You may notice that effectively the TLevel transition program can be thought of as something of a mini TLevel. So let's have a brief look at TLevel funding and financial support. Another area of policy that's been developing alongside TLevels is how they are funded and in broader terms, how the Level 3 landscape is funded in the future. The key headline is that the ESFA are building on the existing arrangements in order to distribute T-level funding for 16 to 19-year-olds. This is rather than to design a new and separate system. This means adjusting the current funding system so that it funds T-levels as well as existing 16 to 19 study programs. There are, however, a number of differences and additional elements that T-level students will attract. So they've introduced 4 new funding bands from 6 to 9 because T-levels are larger than standard study programs and will be of different sizes. Funding is based on the number of program hours over the 2-year duration of the program. So, for example, if a program is in band 7, it would be funded at £10,122 per student. In addition to the funding for the TQ, industry placements are funded at a flat rate of £550, with half paid in the first year and half in the second, and a single payment of £750 per subject per student will be paid in the first year for students without level 2 in maths and/or English, who will need to continue studying these subjects as part of their T-level in order to achieve the exit requirements. As many of you will probably already be aware, one of the key issues around funding is the retention factor. So just a quick word on that. T-levels will be recorded as a 2-year program with retention calculated on an annual basis. When students are on a 2-year program and they complete the first year, they will be counted as retained in that academic year. Completing the first year is defined as being in learning on the last working day in June, and the same principle applies in the second year. More guidance on this can be found on the gov.uk website at the link below. In terms of capital funding, the T-Levels Capital Fund, or the TLCF, is aimed at those further education providers at the forefront of delivering these important reforms to be ready to teach T-levels. The DfE made £133 million available for the first 2 waves of capital funding for 2020 and for 2021 providers, and they are making available a further £135 million in capital funding for providers delivering T-levels from 2022. The T-Levels Capital Fund comprises of 2 different elements: the Buildings and Facilities Improvement Grant, or the BFIG, and the Specialist Equipment Allowance, known as the C. The aim of the TLCF is to help eligible further education providers have world-class facilities for the delivery of T-levels. You're eligible to apply if you are a provider on the list of providers selected to deliver T-levels, you are an academy, a further education college, a higher education institution, a school, sixth form college, or a university technical college, and you have not previously been awarded a BFIG for the T-level route for the institution or campus that you are applying for. In order to be eligible to receive TLevel capital, you must continue to satisfy all the required selection criteria to deliver TLevels from September 2022. It should be noted, however, that the Buildings and Facilities Improvement Grant is not available currently for independent training providers. Capital funding for 2022 is available across 7 routes, and these are set out in the table now showing on the screen. There are 2 key parameters which need to be considered. Firstly, there is the minimum project value threshold. So any bids for funding, regardless of the route, must have a minimum value of £200,000. The Department of Education have indicated that they would not accept bids under this value. Secondly, there is a maximum grant. The maximum grant available, however, is based on the route. Those routes deemed to have higher capital need requirements have a higher maximum. There's no surprise, for example, to note that construction has a ceiling of 1.4 million, which is considerably higher than, for example, education childcare, which is capped at 0.5 million. So let's look at some important dates for the TLevels bidding process for BFIG. The launch of the funding round for 2022 was launched earlier last month on the 13th of January 2021. So a key date for your diaries for those of you who are on the session today who are looking to become 2022 providers is on the 26th of March 2021, and that deadline is 12 noon. This is the key deadline for applications to the Building and Facilities Improvement Grant. Applications will be assessed after the closure dates, so between the end of March and June 2021, and application outcomes will be communicated to providers in July 2021. For more detailed information and guidance on these funding rules, we've included the link in the slides, which will be sent out to you after the webinar. The second element of capital funding is the Specialist Equipment Allocation, or the C. This fund is for, as the name suggests, specialist equipment that your centre will need in the delivery of a particular route. You're not supposed to include specialist equipment costs in your building and facilities project costs, as they are accounted for in the BFIG. All providers that have been selected to deliver TLevels from September 2022 are entitled to the specialist equipment allocation. And this is available for each route that you are delivering, except where you have received this funding in 2020 or 2021 for a particular route. The DfE expect to give an indication of the level of the specialist equipment allocation by early 2022 and expect to pay the allocation in spring 2022. Turning now to a few slides on assurance and regulation. The Institute, that is IFATE, and Ofqual are working together to quality assure TLevel technical qualifications, giving confidence to employers and learners that their needs are being met. The Institute and Ofqual have agreed joint governance structures to harness their respective expertise and reflect their statutory remits, and thus enabling them to collaborate as efficiently as possible. The Institute has overall responsibility for TQ approvals and for ongoing monitoring and performance management in the context of the AO service requirements. So that's the awarding organisation service requirements. The Institute will carry out regular reviews to identify any changes to the technical qualification that are required to ensure they remain up to date and fit for purpose. The technical qualifications will be regulated by Ofqual, and it is a condition of the Institute's contract with each awarding organisation or provider that the AO must be recognised by Ofqual before they can develop and deliver a technical qualification. Awarding organisations need to meet Ofqual's general conditions of recognition and the conditions that are specific to the technical qualifications. As alluded to at the beginning of the webinar, there are many areas for providers and AOs that are developing and emerging because of the situation with COVID. But I did want to say just a few words on Ofsted, perhaps some more substantive elements. So learning providers will be accountable for the quality of their TLevel offer, and TLevel provision will be subject to Ofsted inspection in due course. The Department for Education are working closely with Ofsted to ensure that they contribute to the successful delivery of TLevels more broadly, and they recently agreed that they would undertake a thematic survey of TLevels and TLevel transition programme implementation, covering the first 2 years of delivery. In the first year of rollout, it was intended that Ofsted will survey a sample of 25 providers delivering TLevels and 12 providers delivering the TLevel transition programme. In the second year of rollout, Ofsted will undertake a survey of a further 20 TLevel providers, including 10 of whom were surveyed in the first year. Ofsted will also survey a further 12 TLevel transition programme providers, in addition to the 12 that they plan to survey in session 2020 to 2021. And second year surveys are planned to take place between January and March 2022. The survey visits will consist of a focused deep dive into the implementation of the first TLevels and the TLevel transition programmes, and they'll be focusing on educational effectiveness, providers' leadership and management, and the personal development of learners. The intention of the survey is to identify strengths, weaknesses, and areas for improvement across a substantial sample of providers to help inform best practice for the wider rollout of TLevels. It's intended that providers will be anonymised, no judgments will be made about individual institutions, and Ofsted plan to publish a final report in 2022. So let's briefly turn to some future developments that you might need to be aware of. So in September 2022, we'll see wave 3, where another 6 TLevels will be delivered across 3 distinct routes. Those routes will be legal, finance and accounting, engineering and manufacturing, and business and administration. It's perhaps just worth noting at this point that one of the questions that we're often asked to clarify is around the terminology of routes and pathways and occupational specialisms. So while this is on the screen now, diagrammatically, it might be worth just briefly explaining that. So the larger rectangles on the left are the routes. So for example, legal, finance and accounting, that is the TLevel route. And in total, there are 11 of those for TLevels. Then to the right underneath that, you would have the finance T-level and the accounting T-level. These are known as the pathways. And then within a given pathway, there will be a variety of different occupational specialisms. Okay, if we move on to wave 4 and delivery of T-levels from 2023 onwards. 2023 will be the 4th year of T-level rollout, and the final 8 T-levels will be introduced. To reinforce T-levels as a mainstream offer for all students, all providers currently funded to deliver 16 to 19 study programmes will be eligible to deliver some of the available T-levels from September 2023, but it will be on the following basis. All providers delivering 16 to 19 study programmes can deliver T-levels introduced in 2020 and 2021. Those providers with Ofsted good and outstanding grades can also deliver T-levels introduced in 2022 and 2023. In early 2021, the Department for Education will be launching a portal to allow providers to register their intention to deliver T-levels from 2023 and to access support for planning and preparation and to receive upfront T-level delivery funding. The department will encourage registrations from a range of providers who deliver 16 to 19 study programmes, including FE colleges and other providers such as UTCs and other academies. Looking ahead to 2024, all T-levels will have been delivered for at least a year and the full national rollout will be underway. Therefore, from 2024, T-levels will be available to be delivered by all providers delivering 16 to 19 study programmes, irrespective of their Ofsted grading. So I just want to turn now for a few moments on the wider future of Level 3 funding. In October 2020, the government launched a second stage consultation to review post-16 qualifications at Level 3 in England. And in that consultation, they set out their position on what they're calling the Level 3 landscape. The key tenets of that landscape can be summarised in the diagram that we're now looking at on screen. We can see that qualifications at this level are clearly categorised as either technical or academic. Obviously, in this session, we're focusing on T-levels, and hence I don't want to say too much about the academic route, but I think it is helpful to see T-levels in the wider contextual landscape. So the academic route is rooted in traditional A-level, AS-level qualifications, with some limited exceptions, with some options for either complementary provision that can run alongside A-levels or some limited alternatives. In the area highlighted by the red outline, we can see the high-level proposals for technical education. It is proposed that in the technical education space, T-levels and apprenticeship qualifications will be the primary attractors of government funding in the future. There will be some exceptions where, for example, there is an employer-led standard which is not covered by a T-level, or if the qualification is in a specialist area that goes beyond a T-level. The consultation closed on the 15th of January, but what we do know is that over the next few years, the government will remove funding approval from Level 3 qualifications where there are no enrolments, and they'll be doing that from August 2021. and ultimately they'll be removing funding from all level 3 qualifications that do not have a place in this new landscape from September 2024. So the implications of that are deep and wide-reaching, and something that colleagues may want to consider, obviously, for their future curriculum planning. Also, as part of that consultation, the government has alluded to the idea of T-levels for adults. So, as we know, T-levels are currently available for 16 to 19-year-olds, but we may want as many people as possible to benefit from these high-quality programs. So the government are exploring how T-levels can be extended to adults. The second stage consultation of the post-16s qualification review sets out the government's proposals about how T-levels could be adapted to take account of prior learning and experience, and obviously the flexible delivery needs of adults. It's also thought that for some pathways there may be a potential for delivery of the occupational specialisms as a standalone qualification for adults. That all has yet to be obviously confirmed. So I'm going to briefly look at some other sources of support for you for T-levels. Since May 2019, the Education Training Foundation has been delivering a professional development offer, the T-level Professional Development, or the TLPD, which has been helping staff, including teachers, trainers, managers and leaders, prepare for change and to successfully deliver T-levels from 2020. The core offer is around training needs analysis. So the organisational training needs analysis is available for providers to better understand their development needs of the staff to deliver T-levels. An individual TNA is available for all relevant staff to support their requirements. In terms of understanding T-levels, there's a wide-ranging engagement programme underpinned by a comprehensive professional development programme. Interestingly, for colleagues on the call today, there is professional development for leaders. This programme will support all staff in leadership roles to inspire and lead the change process in good time before their organisations first teach T-levels. There's T-level role and route specific training, providing centres with personalised continuing professional development, ranging across different subject areas, structured to meet the needs of teachers and trainers. Industry insights will provide staff with the opportunity to undertake workplace shadowing and placement opportunities and attend industry workshops to raise awareness of current industry practices. And finally, there are networks and trips. So these are regional and local networks, and they'll enable those involved in delivering T-levels and those considering delivery in the future to interact and exchange ideas and resources. And these include, as I referred to, the trips, which are T-level resource improvement projects where providers can work together to collaborate on projects. There's also the National Apprenticeship Service. So the National Apprenticeship Service has played a key role over the past few years in continuing to raise awareness of T-levels with employers and to provide advice and access to employer-facing materials. They've engaged with over 16,000 employers, including 1,200 of the largest apprenticeship paying employers through direct engagement. They've also used existing engagement channels built up with their work on apprenticeships. They've worked with T-level ambassadors, intermediaries, key figureheads within business, including national broker services such as FSB, the CBI, and local brokerages in the 38 local enterprise partnership areas. They've also worked with large public sector organisations to develop engagement strategies, including workshops with the NHS trusts and through local government authorities. And they also provide a matching service to help provide the link between providers seeking placements and employers who would like to host a TLevel student. So in terms of the next steps, NCFE approvals process for 2021 delivery opens on the 22nd of February, so at the end of this month, for 2021 providers. So to take part in that process, the DFE must have confirmed that you are an eligible provider. And as part of our NCFE internal process for approval, there are two different routes. There's a route if you're a new NCFE provider and you don't currently work with us, but you are going to be delivering one of our TLevels, or there is a separate route for existing NCFE providers who do currently work with us, but are adding a TLevel as a new product. So to request approval, that is done through our Qual Hub, and the link is on the slide there. And if you navigate to the product that you wish to apply for, shortlist the product on Qual Hub, and then select request approval and complete the online application form. Okay. So we're coming towards the end of our hour now. Unfortunately, we haven't had time to pick up any questions within the session, but as I said at the beginning of the webinar, we will pick up any questions that have been sent to us through the chat box or the question box, and take those away and try to get some answers for you on that. And we'll have a link onto our frequently asked questions page. In terms of contacting us, our website details are on screen now, and I would advise you to regularly visit our website, where there'll be updates on the approvals process and how to become an NCFE approved centre or to become approved to deliver TLevels with us, details about our onboarding process and when that will start, dates and outlines of online CPD and training, and also at some point in the future, COVID permitting, we will publish any face-to-face CPD and training that we will plan to deliver in the future. If you have any general TLevel queries, the email below is tlevelsupport@ncfe.org.uk. So one of the key elements in supporting us in terms of developing our CPD and training for you, our providers, is to try and gather as much information about what your CPD and training requirements are. So as almost the final part of the webinar, we've included a link or a QR code on the screen to direct you to a separate survey, which I would politely ask if you could complete for us, which would be really helpful in informing those plans. If you have a smartphone or a camera on your smartphone, all you need to do is take a picture of the QR code, and it should take you directly through to complete that survey. And within that survey, some of the questions ask you to rank some of your CPD preferences. This is so we can get a sense of what your priorities are. It doesn't mean that we will necessarily be able to deliver one or all of those things, but we want to be able to prioritise where possible. Alternatively, if you can't use the QR code, one of my colleagues will be putting the link in the chat box to that form for you now. So I hope you found the webinar helpful and pitched at the right level. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Stay safe, and thank you.